Welcome, everyone. I'm very excited to have the opportunity to talk with you about Beyond Surviving today. Let me start by telling you a little bit about myself. I grew up in a fairly small town in Oklahoma, and when I was 5 years old, my grandfather came to live with my family. I'd often help my mom and dad take care of him by doing simple things like taking him a bowl of cereal or keeping him company. And he was pretty much a friend and a quiet companion up until the day he began abusing me when I was 10 years old. Fortunately, when my parents discovered what was happening, they immediately removed him from our home. But not so fortunately, they weren't quite sure how to support me and help me make sense of what had happened. So my teen years were, as I'm sure many of you can relate to, difficult and full of fears about my self-worth and value. I was very confused about relationships and intimacy and felt very alone much of the time, like no one could really understand me. During my early 20s, I decided enough was enough and began doing all the things we usually do when we want to get over something, talking to friends, seeing a therapist, reading books. And by my late 20s, I was better, but I was still going around and around the same mountain of self-doubt, anger, acting out, and non-existent boundaries. I remember very distinctly a day in 2005 when the thought occurred to me, I don't really want to just survive my life. I really want to live it. And that thought stirred something deep inside of me, and I set out to discover how I could live a powerful, authentic life free from the burdens and patterns of thought and behavior that result from abuse. So I began reading more and talking with other people and reflecting deeply on what lessons had really made a difference in my recovery up to that point. I realized that I had come to understand the abuse as an experience, that I had drawn the connections between the abuse and my current behavior. For example, I could explain why I didn't trust others. But there was one critical question that wasn't being answered by any of the books, therapists, or friends. And that question was, so what do I do about it? The Beyond Surviving course is my answer to that question. It's the culmination of everything I've learned along the way, either by experience or through completing my master's in counseling psychology. The course is roughly divided into 5 parts. We begin by first of all coming to an understanding of how the brain is wired as a result of abuse and techniques for challenging this wiring. Next, we explore and unveil the false beliefs that we have about ourselves, others, and relationships. Then I teach some techniques for breaking out of these patterns of thought and behavior. We then explore deeply the emotional and relational impacts of abuse before exploring how we move on and have a conversation with our abuser, if that is something we want to do. One thing that was important to me when developing this course was that the recovery goals for each participant be measurable. So we also explore how to create measurable results so we can gauge objectively where we are meeting your goals and where there is still some work to be done. Having led this course or working the program with individuals for the past 3 years, I've been so pleased to see the transformative effects it has had on participants' lives and relationships. And I'm very excited to have the opportunity to share what I've learned so that others can join me as a Beyond survivor. I hope you're walking away from today's call with a clear sense of who I am and how Beyond Surviving can play a part in your journey of recovery. Thank you for joining me, and I hope to be working with you soon.